My parents had never celebrated me in a meaningful way. Not my achievements, not my milestones, not even my birthdays. So why would they invite me for a special family dinner? I asked myself. I was scared, quite uncomfortable and tensed. But I decided to give it the benefit of doubt. Maybe truly, they had something special for me. I had spent the entire week imagining the worst. Not because my imagination runs wild. I'm careful with my thoughts. But because the last 30 years of my life had been a series of calculated humiliations masquerading as love. Elara, my mother's voice had been tight and polite, the kind of tone that carries both command and expectation. We want the whole family there. Saturday, 7 p.m. Don't be late. That was it. No warm words, no happy birthday, no hint of affection, just an instruction. I had turned 30 that week, and I should have felt excited. Instead, there was a hollow knot in my stomach that had been growing for days. I stared at my reflection in the mirror that morning, adjusting the strap of my deep burgundy dress, a color I had never dared wear in front of my family. Something about it felt right. Bold, unafraid, visible. Don't let them see fear, I muttered to myself, smoothing the fabric over my shoulders. My apartment felt unusually still, the kind of quiet that presses against your ears and makes your heartbeat seem too loud. I tried to shake the unease, telling myself that my parents finally wanted to do something nice. After all, they had called the previous week, asking me to clear my schedule for a special family dinner at the Riverview Estate, the upscale restaurant where they always hosted the celebrations that mattered. I spent the next few days preparing, not for a party, but for the unknown. I chose my outfit carefully, something elegant but strong, and rehearsed 1,000 tiny ways to keep my composure if the air became thick with judgment, ridicule, or betrayal. And yet, nothing could prepare me for the sight that greeted me when I arrived. The restaurant was buzzing softly with pre-dinner murmurs, the faint scent of lavender and polished wood clinging to the air. I walked in, my heels clicking against the marble floor, and froze. Over 50 relatives. Aunts, uncles, cousins. Faces I hadn't seen in years, some I barely remembered, all staring as if I had just walked onto a stage prepared for my performance. The room was set in a perfect U-shape around the central table. No decorations, no balloons, no birthday banners. Just the stark formality of wealth and power. Everything here screamed careful planning, and every carefully placed detail seemed designed to make me feel small. I took a deep breath and forced my shoulders back. My parents were at the head of the table, my mother in her usual pearls, my father's expression unreadable, like a mask molded to perfection. My younger brother, Darren, sat to her right, a practiced smirk on his face that suggested he knew something I didn't. And there, at the far end, my cousin Meredith, the golden child, her gaze sliding away quickly when our eyes met. I stepped toward the empty chair, feeling each gaze pierce me, weighing me, judging me. The silence was oppressive, like a physical wall pressing against my chest. I felt my pulse in my throat, loud, stubborn, alive. Before I could even sit, my father stood. The room's air seemed to crack with the sudden motion. He picked up a crystal glass, tapping it delicately with the handle of a silver spoon. Tap, tap, tap. Silence followed. Every eye turned to him, expectant, some curious, some gleeful. "Thank you all for coming tonight," his voice rang out, crisp, cold, deliberate. "We've gathered here for a family matter. Not a celebration of Elara. A matter of principle, of respect, of family honor." My stomach clenched, a tight, twisting knot. My hands, folded on my lap, felt too small, too weak. My breath caught. "As many of you know," he continued, his eyes sweeping the room like a scalpel, "Elara has repeatedly brought shame to our family. Her choices, her defiance of expectations, her pursuit of her own ambitions instead of the career we mapped out for her, have embarrassed us. She has rejected every opportunity we provided." A few murmurs rippled through the crowd, soft but unmistakable. I caught fragments, "Always knew she'd disappoint. So selfish. What a shame." My father's voice hardened. We cannot tolerate such behavior any longer. Therefore, I froze, gripping the edges of the chair as if it could anchor me to the world. We are here to officially disown Elara. Effective immediately. The room went still. Absolute silence. 50 pairs of eyes, dozens of whispers, 100 judgments, all trained on me. I felt like the floor had dropped from under me. For a heartbeat, I considered the panic rising in my chest. My mouth opened to plead, to explain, to beg, but no words came. Instead, a strange clarity settled in. I looked around, really looked. At their faces. My parents' poised arrogance. My brother's quiet satisfaction. Meredith's controlled indifference. The distant cousin's curiosity, tinged with amusement. And then, a flicker in the corner of the room. A woman, sitting apart from the others, older, composed, quiet. She wasn't judging me. She wasn't whispering. She was just watching, waiting. And somehow in that instant, I knew I was not completely alone. The room's eyes pressed down on me, and I realized something that startled me. I was not the same terrified girl who had spent decades seeking their approval. This was the first moment in my life I felt the raw power of my own agency, sharp and undeniable. I stood. The chair scraped lightly against the marble. Every head turned, some in surprise, others in anticipation. I took a breath, letting it fill me, anchoring me. I reached for the microphone at the center of the table. "This isn't how it ends," I said, my voice calm but firm. Every word measured, deliberate. Every pair of eyes widened. Silence followed, a collective intake of breath. My mother's smile faltered. My father's jaw tightened. Meredith's smirk disappeared. Even the distant relatives shifted in their seats. I let the silence stretch, feeling its weight, savoring the tension. Then I said the words, clear, deliberate, unyielding. "Your shame is my freedom. Goodbye." The words fell like stones into the stillness. I watched, fascinated, as the room reacted. Eyes went wide. Mouths dropped open. Faces turned pale. My mother's hands trembled slightly, betraying the first crack in her flawless armor. My father's chair tilted back as he sank into it, speechless. My brother's smugness vanished, replaced with disbelief. And Meredith. She finally looked at me, truly looked, and I saw fear flash there, quickly suppressed. The woman in the corner smiled softly, almost imperceptibly. Her eyes met mine for a brief moment, and something unspoken passed between us. Acknowledgement, approval, solidarity. Someone who had waited, watched, and known that this moment would come. The room was frozen, the hum of the restaurant beyond our walls barely audible. I felt the power of my own presence for the first time in decades. And then, before anyone could respond, I stepped past the table. My heels clicked deliberately against the marble as I walked toward the exit, leaving every expectation, every attempt to control me, behind. I didn't look back. The cool night air hit me the moment I stepped outside the Riverview estate. My heels clicked sharply against the pavement, a rhythm that felt almost defiant. Behind me, through the glass doors, I could see the silhouettes of my family. Frozen, whispering, shocked, but I didn't look back. I couldn't. Not yet. I pulled my coat tighter around me, trying to calm the storm of adrenaline that was surging through my veins. My heart raced, but not with fear, with exhilaration, the kind that comes from finally reclaiming yourself. I felt alive in a way I hadn't in decades. A voice, soft but deliberate, broke through my thoughts. Quite a performance. I spun around, startled. A woman stepped from the shadows of the alley beside the restaurant. She was tall, with hair the color of ash and eyes sharp, calculating, yet oddly kind. She wore a long coat, perfectly tailored, and carried herself with the kind of confidence that made it impossible to look away. "You scared everyone in there," I said, my voice trembling slightly, though I tried to mask it with a laugh. "Including myself, apparently." She smiled faintly. "I've seen worse." But not many walk out on their family like that and do it with style. I frowned. Who are you? My instincts told me she wasn't just a random stranger. There was something about her, a knowing that unsettled me. My name is Lucienne, she said, holding out her hand. I was watching. You did exactly what you needed to do tonight. I hesitated, taking in her words. Watching? You mean, in there? Yes, she replied. From a distance. Sometimes, you need someone to see the truth before you can act on it. Her gaze softened slightly. Your family. They don't know the half of what you've endured. But they will. I felt a chill run down my spine. Somehow she understood, in a way no one else ever had. How could you possibly? I started, but she shook her head. Not here. Not yet. Just know that the world isn't as small as your family thinks it is. And neither are you. Before I could respond, she turned and disappeared into the shadows, leaving me alone on the sidewalk. My chest tightened. Her presence had been fleeting, almost unreal, but the weight of her words lingered, heavy and insistent. I made my way back to my apartment, my mind racing. The city lights blurred past as I tried to process what had just happened. Disowned. Officially. In front of every relative I had ever known. And yet, I didn't feel broken. I felt free. The next morning, my phone exploded with messages. Texts, emails, even social media notifications. All from family members I hadn't spoken to in years. Darren. What the hell was that last night? Are you insane? Mom. Call me immediately. We need to talk. Meredith. Ilara. This is unacceptable. I can't believe you humiliated us like that. And dozens more, each more frantic, more accusatory than the last. I didn't respond. Not yet. I needed time to think, time to breathe, time to realize that I was no longer obligated to explain myself to anyone. The following days were a blur. I avoided my parents' calls, ignored messages, and spent hours walking the city streets, replaying the dinner in my mind. Each step, each memory, seemed to sharpen my sense of clarity. For the first time, I realized just how much control I had been giving away all these years. How much power I had let them steal from me, not just through words, but through every subtle manipulation, every comparison, every quiet dismissal. I began to notice the changes immediately. People at work, colleagues who had always treated me like an afterthought, now looked at me differently. My voice carried more weight. My opinions, once overlooked, were now sought out. It was subtle, but it was there, a reflection of the energy I had unleashed in myself the night before. Then came the first visit. It was early morning when I heard a knock at my door. I wasn't expecting anyone, and instinctively, I felt a wave of caution. I opened the door to find a man in a crisp suit, holding a folder thick with papers. His expression was polite but urgent. Ilara Monroe? He asked. Yes, I said, curious despite myself. He handed me the folder. I'm Mr. Calloway, from your father's legal office. This is, regarding the events of last night. He wanted me to deliver these documents personally. Please read them carefully. I took the folder, my fingers brushing against the thick, embossed paper. Inside, legal notices, disclaimers, and what appeared to be an attempt to strip me of certain family privileges. Inheritance, trust funds, even access to certain properties. But as I flipped through the pages, one thing became clear. My parents had underestimated me. They believed that disowning me would weaken me, strip me of influence, make me compliant. They were wrong. I felt a surge of satisfaction, tempered by curiosity. How far were they willing to go? What lengths would they take to assert control? And more importantly, who else in that room had been complicit in their plan? Later that week, I received an unexpected email. The sender name, Lucienne. Ilara. I know this is sudden. But you need guidance. And protection. Your family is powerful, but their reach is limited. There are things about them you don't yet understand. Meet me tomorrow. Noon. City Library, 5th floor, Archives Room. Come alone. L. My pulse quickened. Meeting her meant stepping deeper into the unknown, but instinct told me it was necessary. Something about Lucienne suggested that she held knowledge I could use, information my family would never reveal. The next day, I arrived at the library, heart pounding, palms slightly sweaty. I navigated to the archives room, where the air smelled of old books and dust, and there she was, waiting, calm, collected, watching. Good, she said, almost approvingly. You came. Most people your age, your position, would run, hide, or plead. Not you. I swallowed. Why are you helping me? Her lips curved into the faintest smile. Because I've been in your position. Because I've seen what people like your parents do. And because some debts need to be settled in ways that are often invisible until it's too late. My curiosity sharpened into hunger. What do you mean? She gestured for me to sit. Patience, she said. First, you need to understand exactly what you're dealing with. Your family. They're not just emotionally manipulative. They've built a network, influence, connections, wealth, and they've been grooming the next generation to continue their control. If you react too quickly, you play into their hands. But if you observe, if you wait, you gain power. Her words hit me like a revelation. Every humiliation, every act of control, every secret judgment, it all had a method, a strategy. And I had been the unwitting pawn all along. But, what do? I asked, my voice small, uncertain. First, she said, leaning forward, you survive this. You keep your dignity. You reclaim your resources. You learn their weaknesses. And only then will the reckoning come. I nodded slowly. There was a strange thrill in the idea, not revenge for revenge's sake, but strategy, control, agency, the kind of power I had always been denied. Lucienne reached into her coat and handed me a small envelope. Everything you need to know begins here. Study it, learn, and be ready. Your next move will determine everything. I took the envelope, feeling the weight of possibility in my hands. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was standing on the edge of something immense. Something terrifying. And something exhilarating. The next day, the whispers began. Family members calling, probing, sending emissaries to test my reaction. But I remained silent. I let them strain at the edges of my patience, watched them flounder as their control slipped away. Every move I made from that point forward was calculated. Every word measured. Every interaction a test of loyalty, power, and truth. And all the while, Lucienne watched. From the shadows, unseen, guiding, waiting. I didn't know it then, but the dinner had been only the first act. The real game, the one that would reveal who my family truly was, and who I had the power to become, had only just begun. Moral lessons. This story reminds us that appearances can be deceiving, and that true strength often lies in quiet resilience rather than outward rebellion. It teaches the importance of patience, perseverance, and the value of taking action with integrity, even when those around you are blind to your sacrifices. It also highlights that respect and recognition should be earned through deeds, not assumed through bloodlines or social standing. Most importantly, it shows that holding on to your self-worth and standing up for yourself, at the right time, can transform shame and injustice into empowerment, leaving a lasting lesson for both yourself and those who underestimate you.